My boss humiliated me in front of everyone and gave my position to his favorite employee. Everyone made fun of me, but when the company's biggest client mentioned my name, everyone was left shocked. I still remember that Monday morning when I walked through the glass doors of the office with a cup of coffee in my hand. I had no idea that just a few hours later, the same place where I had given 10 years of my hard work, silence, and loyalty would become a lesson I would never forget for the rest of my life. I joined the company as an ordinary employee, but over time I became much more than someone who simply completed tasks. I learned the business, understood its problems, and stood beside people who sometimes did not even know which direction they needed to take. I stayed late nights preparing reports, built strong relationships with major clients, and saved projects that were only steps away from failure. But I never fought for recognition because I believed that good work speaks for itself. My boss, David, used to appreciate my efforts in the beginning, but slowly his attitude began to change. A new employee named Amy joined the company. She was cheerful, confident, always knew what to say in meetings, and had a way of making herself noticeable whenever David was around. Little by little, she became his favorite, and I started realizing that years of my experience were being replaced by a few impressive presentations and friendly smiles. I watched the change quietly because life had taught me that not every battle needs to be fought immediately. Some battles need to be left in the hands of time. Then the day came when a team meeting was called. I assumed we would discuss a new project, but instead, David announced in front of everyone that my responsibilities were being reduced, and my position would be given to Amy. Looking directly at me, he said, "Sometimes a company needs fresh energy and new ideas." The words sounded polite, but the meaning was clear. Some people in the room avoided eye contact. Others had strange expressions on their faces, almost as if they were entertained by watching someone else lose. No one said anything, but I learned that silence can sometimes become its own form of humiliation. I simply closed my notebook, picked up my belongings, and quietly said, "I understand." I did not argue. I did not blame anyone. I did not list everything I had done for the company, because I knew that people who understand the truth do not need to defend themselves at every door they walk through. That night when I came home, everything looked normal. My daughter talked about her upcoming PTA meeting, my husband mentioned our usual Sunday Costco trip, and old Thanksgiving dinner photos were hanging in the kitchen, showing all of us smiling as if life had never given us a single problem. Looking at those pictures, I remembered how many years I had tried to be the perfect mom, the perfect wife, and the perfect employee. We used to talk about our 401k, our retirement plans, and the future we thought we had carefully planned. But life has a way of making its own decisions. The next few weeks were quiet. I did not turn my pain into anger. I turned it into reflection. I reviewed my past work, my reports, the relationships I had built with clients, and the weaknesses inside the company that others failed to notice. I knew my value was never defined by a title. It was defined by my ability. I made a plan, but I told no one. I took my experience and gave it a new direction. I stayed connected with the company's biggest client, the one relationship that had always been built on trust and results. That client knew who actually solved problems and who simply looked good during meetings. A few months later, the company was preparing for one of its biggest deals ever. Everyone's attention was focused on that contract. The entire leadership team was present, including David, Amy, and the same people who once smiled when I stayed silent. The meeting began and the presentation moved forward. Then suddenly, the company's biggest client interrupted and said, "We will move forward with this project under one condition. We need the person who has understood our challenges for the past 10 years. We need the person we trust." Then he said my name. The room became completely silent. I looked at David's face. There was surprise in his eyes and maybe even a little regret. But for me, that moment was not about victory or proving anyone wrong. It was simply confirmation. Sometimes time says what people never have the courage to say themselves. I did not return to that company in my old position. Instead, I created a new path for myself. I found a place where experience was respected, not treated as something outdated. I chose to work with people who understood the difference between appearance and real ability. Today, when I look back at that meeting with David, I do not remember it with pain. I remember it as the moment when I learned that staying quiet is not weakness. Sometimes silence is the strongest answer a person can give. I never took revenge on anyone. I simply found myself again, and maybe that was the quietest and most meaningful justice of all. Today, my life has less noise but much more peace because I have learned that once you recognize your own worth, you no longer need to wait for the world to recognize it first. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. If you enjoyed this powerful journey of courage, patience, and self-worth, please support us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more inspiring stories like this one. See you in the next story.